De Bruyne, onside, half the field to himself. Kevin De Bruyne, 3-0 Wolfsburg. The champions are crumbling.
In Los Angeles, a footballer walked off a pitch for what might be the last time in a World Cup shirt. Spain 2, Belgium 1. A spilled save, a rebound, a cruel late winner. And somewhere in the stands, his wife and 3 kids watched a chapter close that started 34 years earlier in a small Belgian town most commentators still mispronounce. This isn't a story about an ending. It's a story about a kid nobody wanted, who spent 20 years making the people who didn't want him regret it. Drongen, a quiet suburb of Ghent, born June 28, 1991, to Herwig, a Belgian father, and Anna, a mother born thousands of miles away in Burundi, East Africa. A detail that technically means little Kevin De Bruyne could have grown up to play international football for 2 different countries. He picked the wrong one, depending who you ask in Brussels this week. KEV wasn't the loudest kid in the room, shy by his own admission years later. But he had one obsession, a ball and a garden fence. Legend has it, and he's never denied it, that De Bruyne strengthened his left foot specifically because his right kept destroying the neighbor's garden. Somewhere in Drongen, there's a flower bed that unknowingly helped build one of the great passing ranges in football history. At 14, he made a decision most 14-year-olds wouldn't have the nerve to make. He left his parents' house, alone, for a football academy on the other side of the country. KRC Genk. 2 hours from home, a different dialect, 0 friends. He'd later call those first 2 years the loneliest years I'll ever live. A boarding house first. Then, in year 2, something better. A foster family, arranged and paid for by the club, meant to give him something like a normal life. For a while, it worked. Good grades, good football, no trouble. Then came the summer break. 15 years old. He walks through his parents' front door expecting an ordinary homecoming. Instead, he finds his mother in tears. The foster family didn't want him back. Too quiet, they said. Too difficult. Words no 15-year-old should have to carry. And De Bruyne carried them for the rest of his career. The club, spooked, refused to fund another placement. Instead, they sent him somewhere else entirely. A boarding house, he'd later say, for troubled kids. So, he did what he'd do for the next 2 decades, every time someone doubted him. He got angry, and he got to work. Alone in that backyard, he said something out loud that would define the next 20 years of his life. 2 months. He'd be in the first team in 2 months, no matter what. He didn't just make the deadline, he obliterated it. Back at Genk, coming off the bench in a reserve match on a Friday night, 16 years old with something to prove, he did something almost absurd. 5 goals in 1 half of football. Genk promoted him to the first team within weeks, faster than he'd promised himself. And then, of course, the foster family resurfaced, suddenly willing to take him back. Suddenly it had all been a misunderstanding. His reply has become one of the most quoted lines of his career. He walked away, and kept walking straight into the Genk first team and straight into a Belgian league title in 2010-11. His teammates on the national youth setup were already talking about him. Future Man City captain Vincent Kompany remembered training beside a 19-year-old De Bruyne and turning to the rest of the squad afterward, stunned that a teenager was already the best player on the pitch. By 19, he'd already pulled on the senior national shirt for the first time, in a friendly against Finland that ended in a forgettable 1-0 loss. What people would remember a few years later was the label the Belgian press started stamping on his entire generation, the Golden One. De Bruyne, Courtois, Hazard, Lukaku, Kids who were all somehow about to become teammates on the biggest stage the sport has. By 2012, half of Europe was calling, and the kid once told he was too difficult. Pick the club that looked on paper like the perfect next step. Chelsea, 2012. A 20-year-old De Bruyne arrives carrying the weight of a Belgian golden generation. He'll leave 2 years later, having played 9 competitive matches. 9. The problem had a name: Jose Mourinho. Mourinho didn't dislike him. When the club considered loaning him out for first-team football, Mourinho blocked it. He wanted De Bruyne with him, but wanting him and playing him turned out to be two very different things. Loaned to Werder Bremen for a season, the kid from Drongen finally got what he'd been starved of: minutes. He made them count: 10 goals, 9 assists, almost single-handedly dragging Bremen away from relegation. He came back to Chelsea with proof. It didn't matter. The breaking point, by his own account, came quietly. Not in a blow-up, but in an office, across a desk, with Mourinho holding a sheet of paper. De Bruyne would later describe telling Mourinho plainly that he felt like the club didn't want him, and that he'd rather be sold than sit. Within months, he was gone. The tabloids had a headline ready-made: the Chelsea reject, a label that would follow him for years, right up until the day he became too good for anyone to remember it. Wolfsburg didn't just buy a player for £18 million in January 2014. They bought a grudge with wings. What happened next is one of the most ridiculous single seasons in modern football. In 2014-15, De Bruyne didn't just play well for Wolfsburg. He rewrote the Bundesliga record books. He dragged Wolfsburg to second place, their best league finish in years, and to their first ever DFB Pokal title, scoring the decisive goal in the final against Jurgen Klopp's Borussia Dortmund. His feet were literally cast in bronze on Berlin's Walk of Fame outside the Olympiastadion. Not everything about that season was elegant. In February 2015, in the dying seconds of a match, a ball boy took too long returning the ball. And De Bruyne, competitive to a fault, let him have it, loudly enough that the German Federation's ethics committee stepped in. By season's end, he was Germany's Footballer of the Year, the first Belgian to win it, beating out Bayern Munich stars Arjen Robben and Manuel Neuer. In Munich, a manager named Pep Guardiola had been taking notes. After watching De Bruyne score twice against his Bayern side that January, Guardiola was blunt about where he ranked him. That August, before any of the records fell, he'd already announced himself on the biggest stage German football has, the DFL Super Cup against Bayern Munich, setting up a stoppage-time equalizer before slotting the winning penalty in the shootout himself. Asked that summer where he saw his future, De Bruyne kept it deliberately open. England, Spain, France, or a return trip through Germany were all live options, he said. It was an early hint that the quiet kid from Drongen always knew exactly what he wanted, even when he wasn't saying it out loud. While all of this was happening on the pitch, something quieter was happening off it. In 2014, De Bruyne noticed a girl had liked one of his tweets, a woman named Michelle Lacroix from Genk, the same city that had once broken his heart. Here's the part that never makes the highlight reels. De Bruyne, soon to be worth tens of millions of pounds, was too nervous to message her himself. He had a friend do it for him. It worked. They talked for months over text before ever meeting. And by the time Wolfsburg was chasing Bundesliga records, Michelle Lacroix wasn't just a name in his phone anymore. She was becoming the person he'd credit, again and again, with holding his entire world together. One more move to make first. In the summer of 2015, a club from the north of England smashed its transfer record to bring the Chelsea reject home to English football, this time as the main event. Quick pause. If you're new here and you like sports stories that go past the highlight reel, this is what we do every week. Subscribe if that's your thing, because we're about to get into the biggest chapter of this whole story. 10 years, over 400 appearances, 6 Premier League titles, a Champions League, a statue. This is the part of the story most people already think they know. Stick around, because even City fans don't know all of it. A club record fee comes with a club record amount of pressure. De Bruyne's first season in Manchester wasn't the fairy tale everyone expected. Injuries, including a knee ligament problem, chewed up chunks of his debut year. The doubters started sharpening their pens again. Then, in the summer of 2016, everything changed. Not because of De Bruyne, but because of who walked through the door behind him. Under Guardiola, De Bruyne stopped being a very good player and became something closer to a conductor, the one player who decided the tempo of an entire football club. City became the first club in Premier League history to reach 100 points in a single season, the Centurions, and De Bruyne, pulling strings from midfield, was the engine room. Rewind 2 years, though, to the middle of that record £54 million transfer window in 2015. While the paperwork on the biggest move of his career was being finalized, De Bruyne and Michelle got very different news. She was pregnant with their first child. Mason Million De Bruyne was born in March 2016. Right in the middle of a season De Bruyne would later call one of the hardest of his career. Manchester, he'd say years afterward, became more than a football club. His kids were born there. That December, on a trip to Paris, De Bruyne got down on one knee in front of the Eiffel Tower. Michelle said yes. Somewhere, a proposal photography business owes its Christmas bonus to the Eiffel Tower's enduring popularity among footballers. They married in June 2017, a 3-day celebration on the Amalfi Coast. Guests included teammates past and future, a reminder that football's smallest fraternity often doubles as its most exclusive wedding guest list. De Bruyne has always described himself as brutally honest and slow to open up. Before he ever properly met Raheem Sterling, who'd arrived at City around the same time, trailing his own wave of tabloid noise, De Bruyne admits he half believed what he'd read. He expected someone difficult, arrogant even. Instead, the two became close enough that Sterling eventually admitted he'd expected the exact same thing about De Bruyne. Two players, each burned by the same tabloid machine, had judged each other by headlines neither one deserved. It became one of De Bruyne's closest friendships in the sport, helped along, he said, by their sons being born around the same time and growing up together at the training ground. He found a different kind of relationship with David Silva, the City playmaker whose creative shirt he was signed to eventually fill, and instead spent 4 seasons learning from, before Silva's own City exit in 2020. Two number makers, sharing a locker room instead of fighting over one. Zoom out from Manchester for a moment. The same summer, City fans were still celebrating the Centurions. De Bruyne was on a different stage entirely. Russia, 2018, wearing the number 7 for a Belgian golden generation, finally living up to its name. Belgium came back from 2 goals down to beat Japan in the round of 16, hunted down 5-time champions Brazil in the quarterfinal, and pushed France, the eventual champions, to the wire in the semi-final before losing 1-0. In the third-place match, De Bruyne's Belgium beat England 2-0 to finish third. Still, to this day, the best World Cup finish in the country's history. It's the closest the golden generation ever got to a trophy, which, looking back from 2026, makes that quarterfinal exit in Los Angeles sting just a little more. By 2019-20, De Bruyne wasn't just a great player anymore. He was, statistically, one of the greatest passers the Premier League had ever produced, equaling the single-season assist record with 20, matching a mark Thierry Henry had set 17 years earlier. He was named the league's player of the season. That same stretch, the family grew again. A second son, Rome, born in October 2018, and a daughter, Suri, in September 2020. Right as football played entire seasons inside empty pandemic-silenced stadiums. For a career shaped early on by isolation, the boarding house, the foster family, the loneliest years, there's something almost poetic about him becoming a father of 3 inside stadiums that had, quite literally, gone silent. That same stretch, the family grew again. A second son, Rome, born in October 2018, and a daughter, Suri, in September 2020. Right as football played entire seasons inside empty pandemic-silenced stadiums. For a career shaped early on by isolation, the boarding house, the foster family, the loneliest years, there's something almost poetic about him becoming a father of 3 inside stadiums that had, quite literally, gone silent. Off the pitch, De Bruyne built a reputation almost as distinctive as his passing range, the deadpan king of the post-match interview. Ask him a soft question, and you'll get an answer with zero interest in flattering anyone, least of all himself. It's not coldness. It's the same brutal honesty that got a 15-year-old called too difficult by a foster family a decade earlier. Except now, it's delivered with the driest smirk in world football, and clip compilations of his one-liners rack up millions of views on their own. Not every chapter of the City years is a triumph. May 2021, the Champions League final, Porto, City's first ever appearance in the competition's biggest game. 36 minutes in, De Bruyne collides with Chelsea defender Antonio Rudiger, the same Chelsea that once decided he wasn't good enough to make their bench a habit. He walks off in visible distress, the diagnosis which De Bruyne posted himself hours later. A fractured nose, a fractured eye socket. City lose the final, 1-0. He watches the rest of it from the bench, face swollen, his team's biggest night of the decade slipping away in front of him. He came back. Obviously, he came back. 2021-22. A second Premier League Player of the Season award, a feat only a handful of players in league history have repeated. Then came a season that would define an era of English football, Premier League, FA Cup, and finally, the one that got away in Porto, the Champions League. Istanbul, June 2023. City face Inter Milan in the final. 36 minutes in, the exact same number as Porto, if you're the kind of person who notices these things. De Bruyne goes down again. This time, his hamstring, substituted. He watches the second half from the bench, but this time, City hold on. 1-0. Champions of Europe, the treble is complete. And De Bruyne, the kid once told he was too difficult, the reject Chelsea never developed, lifts the biggest trophy in club football, hamstring wrapped in ice, grinning through the pain. The scans afterward weren't pretty. Reports at the time described the torn muscle in blunt terms. Its condition compared to a piece of wet paper towel. Surgery followed. He'd be out for months. That December, City capped an extraordinary year by adding the FIFA Club World Cup too. A trophy sweep few clubs in history have matched. Nearly 5 months. That's how long De Bruyne was out. Erling Haaland, City's new goal machine, and De Bruyne, arguably the two best players at the club, shared a starting 11 exactly once in the first 7 months of that season. Two once-in-a-generation talents kept apart by injury and bad timing. Then, one night against Sheffield United, a name appears on the substitutes board, De Bruyne. 50,000 people rise to their feet before he's even touched the ball. He came off the bench again the following game and needed just moments to set up an assist. City went on to win a historic 4th consecutive Premier League title. With De Bruyne on the pitch that season, City took 48 points from a possible 54. Without him, 43 from 60. The numbers say it plainly. Even at its most stacked, this club still ran on him. Every great show needs an ending, and even De Bruyne's didn't go exactly to script. In April 2025, City confirmed what everyone had quietly feared. His contract wouldn't be renewed. De Bruyne called it plainly, a business decision, and posted his own goodbye before the club had even finished drafting theirs, thanking the city and the club for giving him everything and saying giving it all back had never felt like a choice. His final home match against Bournemouth had one more twist City fans still bring up. Open goal, empty net. A couple of yards out. De Bruyne, of all people, scoops it over the bar. Missed sitter aside, what people actually remember happened after the final whistle. His wife and 3 kids walked out onto the Etihad pitch beside him for a guard of honor from his teammates. Pep Guardiola, the manager who once called him one of the greatest players the club has ever had, stood on the touchline in tears, and the club announced something they'd only done for a handful of legends before him. A statue outside the stadium itself. De Bruyne, fighting back tears of his own, put it simply. 10 years, 6 Premier League titles, 5 League Cups, 2 FA Cups, 3 Community Shields, 1 Champions League, 1 FIFA Club World Cup. 18 trophies with this one club alone, a statue, a road named after him at the academy, and a wife and 3 kids who, for a decade, called a football stadium the family's second home. 33 years old, a statue already being built in his honor at his old club, and De Bruyne could have gone almost anywhere. Saudi Arabia wanted him. MLS wanted him. Instead, he chose the reigning Serie A champions, and a reunion with an old Belgian strike partner. Napoli's official announcement didn't bother with subtlety. a graphic of De Bruyne on a throne, wearing a crown with 3 words. He didn't waste time proving it was more than marketing. A goal on his league debut against Sassuolo, another 3 weeks later against Fiorentina. Belgium's golden boy, reunited with Romelu Lukaku up front, looked every bit the marquee signing Naples had been promised. Under Conte, no stranger to squeezing peak form out of veteran talent, De Bruyne slotted straight into the engine room as if Naples had simply relocated a piece of Manchester City 3,000 kilometers south. Then, in October, the story that's haunted his whole career caught up with him again. A penalty scored against Inter Milan and a hamstring injury on the very same afternoon. Surgery followed. Naples would have to wait for its king. He returned to action in March 2026, off the bench against Torino, and from there, straight into international duty for his 4th World Cup with Belgium. Part of a celebrated golden generation of Belgian players who spent a decade ranked among the best teams on the planet without ever winning the tournament that mattered most. Group stage draws against Egypt and Iran, a 5-1 statement win over New Zealand, a wild round of 32 victory, and then, on July 10th, 2026, the match we opened this video with. Belgium's captain, Yuri Tielemans, injured in the warm-up. Goalkeeper, Thibaut Courtois, forced off mid-match. A Charles de Ketelaere header to level the score. Then, deep in the second half, a mistake, a spilled save, a rebound, and a Spanish substitute named Mikel Merino, who does this kind of thing for a living. Belgium's golden generation eliminated. Somewhere in the stands at SoFi Stadium, 3 kids who grew up inside Manchester City's academy, and a wife who once liked a tweet from a shy Belgian teenager, watched him walk off a World Cup pitch, possibly for the very last time. Somewhere in the stands at SoFi Stadium, 3 kids who grew up inside Manchester City's academy, and a wife who once liked a tweet from a shy Belgian teenager, watched him walk off a World Cup pitch, possibly for the very last time. And somewhere outside a football stadium in Manchester, a statue is still being built, bronze, permanent, facing the pitch he spent a decade turning into his own. When it's finished, it won't be the trophies people photograph themselves next to. It'll be him mid-stride, mid-pass, doing the one thing he was doing back in that Drongen backyard before anyone was watching at all. Michelle Lacroix, for the record, was never just the footballer's wife. Co-host of her own podcast, a genuine presence in her own right online, raising 3 kids across 4 countries and at least as many languages. She built a life alongside his, not just inside it. Because for all the trophies, the records, the statue outside a Premier League stadium, De Bruyne has said more than once that the most important decision of his career wasn't a transfer. It was a text conversation with a girl from Genk that he was too nervous to start himself. A shy kid from Drongen, rejected by a foster family at 15, rejected by Chelsea at 21, told, more than once, that he was too quiet, too difficult, too much of a risk. He turned every one of those rejections into fuel and ended up with a bronze statue, a Champions League medal, 3 kids born a stadium away from where he trained, and a nickname that started as a joke on a club graphic and simply became true. If you like this one, his old strike partner has a story just as wild. Romelu Lukaku's journey next.